You read the Boston Consulting Report, right? Because it was presented a few weeks ago. Do you see an opportunity there? Well, there are a few things we should look at. We start from a different world, because if you take the example of Axel Springer, you see that much of what is generating profits has nothing to do with information, but it has to do with online sales. It has to do with a number of things which we cannot even imagine today, so we're not equipped for that. Then we were discussing this with Juan. The investment made by Axel Springer, if I'm not wrong, is equivalent to 2 billion over 5 years. So it's made with acquisitions of sites. So it's a different story, another type of business. If you talk to traditional publishers, I think Axel Springer is a different model. It's a model of how you can do digital business. And thinking that La Sera, La Stampa, Repubblica can do the same thing, well, not even with journalists and reporters you have to talk. Yes, but I would say that also classified ads and obituaries have provided important flows of revenue, and of course they have nothing to do with news. So when those ads disappear from newspapers, you have to come up with new sources of revenue. Well, with us, they were not as important as they were in the US. The American crisis of 2007, 2008 was in fact the fact that they lost a lot of classified ads. Well, in Italy, we were not ready and fast enough at the time of transformation to understand, if you think about it, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, if you had to hire a house for your holidays, you would buy a newspaper. Today, nobody do that. I mean, there are other channels. The problem is that the transition was not from the print media to digital media. It was from the print media to free newspapers to the digital media. So all of a sudden you discovered that someone was giving free dailies. So you were caught off guard. Because what were we discussing about 10 years ago? We were misled by digital media. We were thinking of a model of free news, and we lost a lot of time there. And then, of course, with a few exceptions, those who focus on that, well, this is not a good business in Italy any longer, that of free newspapers. But, we had this intermediate step, so we were misled, if you like, and we were not able to understand the transition. So the free press distracted our attention. While in Italy 50% of the revenue came from advertising, in the US the percentage was not the same. It was 20 to 30%. So for us, the crisis unfolded when our host, Google, arrived and gave clients better revenues than us. At that time we were working together with La Repubblica Daily, so we were distracted from the free press, from the fact that classified ads were going somewhere else, but especially collateral businesses, because there were books, there were CDs, there were many things or that were given together with daily papers. So at that time we didn't realize what was the real problem. There was a flow of revenue coming from additional items that were sold together with daily papers. But then there is something about reporters, about journalists. I remember journalists were very reluctant to adopt digital media. I remember a letter we received saying, colleague, you have to put up a fight. Just think that at present newsrooms don't have a graphic and a producer sitting around the same table. La Stampa was a pioneer. They created a new type of office. Now it is important to organize your office in a way in which you put together different skills. We didn't want to do it, and now we are paying very dearly for this. We thought that the value of journalism could be defended by somebody else and not by the economic sustainability of daily papers. Whereas it's just economic sustainability that can defend our work. So if today we don't try and have journalists working hand in hand with producers or software programmers, we are dead. Can you do that at Il Corriere? Mario was one of the first ones who did that in Italy. Can you do it at Il Corriere? Can you make this big step forward? I think we can. I don't want to be self-important. I am not the vice director of the web. I'm responsible for the digital part of my newspaper, but also work for the print media. So sometimes we have some articles which we do not put in the print paper, and we put in the web format. But the advantage of the web is the fact that you engage people. So very important or smart journalists have realized that the more they engage the reader, the better their career, the more their signature will be perceived. So they have realized how important the web is. We told this very clearly. People, journalists at La Stampa, tweet what the digital editor has decided to put there. So with us, people would make a copy of an article and would share that. But, if you make an attempt to put some paid contents, because these are contents that you just put on your tablets, and other people decide to launch their article on the social network, then it's real anarchy. But I'd like to tell you something. If you want to make this transition, taking the decision is not enough. You cannot just do, let's integrate the paper and the digital medium. When I arrived 4 years ago, I said, let's do this integration. Everyone said, okay, let's do it. But then nothing happened. So I started from the most difficult thing, traditionally, the comparison with the trade union. We made an industrial negotiation, and then we changed the title, so La Stampa is not a daily paper founded in 1987, but La Stampa 1887, sorry, but it is a distributor of quality contents. Those who write for La Stampa are not writing for the print media, but he is writing for a distributor of quality contents. So we made an agreement. Everyone got some money, not a lot, but they have their money. So we made this fundamental transition. This is how you can implement integration. But it was still done on a voluntary basis. That is, you had to call a person and say, you are writing on the earthquake. Would you write an article also for our website? And then he would say, no, I don't have time. Please call me back. Everything, you had to negotiate everything and ask for favors. And people were even paid for that. We had an industrial agreement. In the end, I realized that the problem is also made by physical barriers. That is the layout of the newsroom. That's why we changed our newsroom. We removed all the walls. So now people are working close to each other. So you don't have to call the person and then the person is not there. You have to beg for an article. No, you just tell him you have to write a piece on Morsi. You are writing an article for the print media, but just write also a couple of lines for the web. You cannot say, no, I can't, have a problem. It's just there. And the fact that you have removed all the walls, you have removed a lot of alibis. And then some people said, but I don't know how to write for the web. They had to send their articles to the web guys. Whereas now, we have just broken all these barriers. So we have removed physical barriers, but also technological barriers, and this worked miracles. But the contract we took care of that before, so we're all together. It's teamwork. In the past, if you could not see the web guys because they were in another building or another office, or you had to walk 5 minutes to get to their office, they were working all the time like crazy from 9 o'clock in the morning. And then the other people in the newsroom were reading newspapers, have a cup of coffee. Now they're working together, close to each other. So you can't accept that there are some people working like crazy from 9 o'clock, because if others are not doing much, you just go and say, please, could you write an article for me? Could you please update this for the web? And they just have to do it, unless you want people to pick up fights, they just have to say, yes, of course, I'm going to do it right now. So you see, it's basic. So you have to write the right layout in the newsroom. That's important. So also a bit of infrastructure. Yes, basically this is what I meant. What about in magazines? How is it going? Very bad. Thank you very much. Well, we found ourselves in a situation in which the internet arrived, but I don't think the main cause of our crisis is the internet. Then there was the economic crisis, a very serious one, and in the midst of the crisis, the end of all government aid. So really a storm, a tragedy. And then this on top of some rigidities of the institutions. I also refer to journalist associations. For instance, they would not accept an agreement, a specific agreement for small publishers. So all these things together produced a dramatic crisis. I have read some figures about companies closing. They are very dramatic. Well, the figures available are not even the real ones. The situation is much worse than that. I'm telling you something. Just at the court of Rome, there are 14,000 titles of newspapers, because we have the duty to register new titles, but we don't have the duty to cancel them. So we had a reduction of 10% just last year. Can you imagine what are the implications in terms of jobs, in terms of employment? It's easy to imagine. Yes. Of course, I hope that all colleagues will find a job, perhaps working on online media. Don't you think there were too many magazines? I mean, with windsurf, we talked of the importance of journalism for democracy, no doubt about it, but perhaps we had too many magazines. Well, in the year 2000, I made a tour of Mediterranean countries, and it's a common feature of Mediterranean countries to produce a lot of information, especially local information and niche information, and this is why you have big numbers. In Greece, there were 5,000 magazines in the year 2000. Well, I wouldn't want to talk about Greece right now. I mean, it's not the best example. Yes, but from a cultural perspective, Greece taught something to the world. What do you think? And these figures, if you want, explain the character of Mediterranean peoples. We Mediterraneans have this tendency to create information. I hope that this information is going to move to the net. Well, now there is a greater awareness to the surplus that is given by the digital media. Well, we have worked with Google for some time to make our publishers understand better what are the tools they can use to improve their business. And what's Google telling you? I mean, what's Google doing? They inform us. We organized an information day together with our Google friends in Dublin, and they informed our members on the possibilities to develop our industry, small and medium-sized publishers. Because, in terms of local information, nothing is like small publishers, because we guarantee a penetration of real contents that the larger publishers just cannot. Real useful press is in local magazines, small magazines. So since we were lagging behind more than daily papers, what kind of information? What do they explain? How to use the internet? Yes, in fact, how to use the tools, how to make money, with digital media. Okay, our industry is very conservative. There are some philosophical structures, some mindsets which are struggling to adjust to change, and the internet is a big change. So what can we do as an association, a sectoral association? We can disseminate information. We are not a newspaper, we are an association of magazines, so we can serve our members by providing them with information. And this refers to what the Undersecretary told us, Yes, I understand. In my opinion, as far as what I understand, the Undersecretary simply told that we have to create a dialogue, and we have to find a different solution, not the French solution or not the German solution, but to find something different. This is what I understand from the words of the Undersecretary, like an in-between solution to find a stable agreement so that Google, for instance, and our members can count on a long-standing solution. Okay, to close, can you give us a best practice in your sector? We are working on this, so you don't have a success story to share. Not yet. I'm not able to tell you about a best practice, but I'm sure next time we meet, we'll be able to share very good results. We have a couple of minutes left. Do we have any questions from the audience? No, nobody? From the internet, I can't read the screen. Daniele, with il Corriere della Sera, what are your next ideas? What are you working on right now? We are working on everything, basically. We are not working on one thing. The digital media for us, but the digital first, these are buzzwords. If you don't have investment in technology, if you don't have a content management system, if you don't have the right infrastructure, you go nowhere. as a website, ilcorriere.it, is not something separate from the rest for us. So Il Corriere system is working as a system. We have realized that internet is a technological platform, a distribution platform. So reporters work 360 degrees, and the idea, just like La Stampa did, even if we are not in the same situation, because you know that we moved our headquarters. The point was that we had to move from Via Solferino because we needed money. But if we had moved from there to have a better newsroom, just like La Stampa did, that would change a lot, because the way to go is what Mario told us, to work all together in a big newsroom. Otherwise, how can people perceive the value of what you do? Because this is the right problem. The goal we have in mind is to make people perceive the value of journalistic work. This is not perceived because 50% of people with a mobile device have never paid for digital contents. They've never paid. And this means that they don't perceive the value of it. They take it for granted. And unfortunately, if we keep going on like this, well, it'll be very bad. But I see that many people start paying for digital contents. La Repubblica has interesting statistics on this, very encouraging data. So what type of information are people willing to pay for? Well, you should discuss business models. Either you have micropayments, small fees, or subscription models. I think I'm not the right person to discuss this. They are not paying for information items because readers are very lazy. When the newsstand closes, it's not that they don't buy newspapers because they are not interested in information. They just don't want to walk more and buy newspaper at another kiosk. But if I have information on my mobile, I am more than willing to read information while waiting for the bus. Twitter's hired Rogers from The Guardian to provide a certain type of information. But when they do this, they need to understand that they are paying for a need for information. So I think it's a matter of journalists. It's not the brand, because the brand is still a guarantee, but what matters the most is the journalist. Are you saying that the journalist is more important than the paper?
Well, when a blogger gets 700,000 euros in just 2 months, you should wonder, because this is a major phenomenon, not tiny things. Then you have to wonder about how to preserve the brand, how to protect journalistic work. That's why I say that they are not prepared to pay for news. Buongiorno by Massimo Gramellini. Do you have to pay to get it? It's one of the most read articles in Italy. Asking people to pay for Gramellini is just too late, I think. You can't do that. Just too late. Now, Ramellini's blog, with a link to the website from his Facebook page, when it wasn't published in our website, it was copied by many people. It's just 23 lines. So people copied, photographed it, sent it. At some point, we made kind of a survey on this, and we have seen that people surfed, this article from a very, from an impressive, variety of sources. Every morning, 7 to 10, we open the website with Gramellini's blog. And even though people don't pay for it, I mean, you generate traffic, which is a good thing. That is the time of the day. Yes, we are trying to sell, advertising between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. in the morning, because that's the time window during which, most people read Gramellini's article, Gramellini's blog. What about your relationship with the social media? Do they generate traffic for you? Are you seeking readers? Are you trying to catch them in social media, through social media? To some extent, yes. In a way, she's like a traffic cop, because she gives order, to social media users, order and rules, or else, chaos reigns. Things you are not doing on paper, you can't do the same things on Twitter. If you're following Berlusconi or Grillo, you can't, you try to be as objective as possible. If you're following Berlusconi and Grillo on Twitter, you must be unbiased just in the same way. You can't get rid of those people. No way, you're not credible. So during the last 12 months, we have created a list of rules to abide by, that you write on paper, that you write tweets. It's a list used by journalists only. BBC, New York Times, they do the same. They prepare a list of rules. Aside from this, we have opened a different form of interaction with readers. We seek readers and we try to stimulate them. Our newsroom is very active on Twitter. So this is not a duty. This is not an obligation. This is fun, From Sanremo to political debates, primaries for the Democratic Party, anything goes. So we write tweets and scorecards. I, Liotta, Brambilla, Gramellini, Mattia Feltri, and many more. We all do the same. And we are impressed, it's impressive, because those kind of information things, in the last 3 months, those things were the most read lines across our website, which is unbelievable, Yes, okay, those comments are very short, concise, linked to pictures, but they can beat, the usual conventional articles, the conventional journalism. Aldo Cazzullo from the Parliament, reporting from the Parliament. He too is very successful. So, do you sell advertising? Well, this is done by publishers, but publishers are taking into consideration, these new ways of charging for ads. We have a world blogger here with us, who is going to close this panel discussion. Thank you.